All right, so the final demo of how the program depends on its surrounding environment, I'd like to start talking about package management. So what is a Python package about? Last class, we talked about what are the benefits of Python in general. And we said that it has a good community or ecosystem. So we have a number of open source third-party libraries that are going to give us supercharged capabilities. Some of those libraries are already installed in Colab, for example, but for them, in general, we might have to install those libraries or packages ourselves. So I'd like to draw your attention next into our package management demo. This demo has a natural language processing flair to it, but it's just going to give us an example of installing a third-party package. We can install and use any third-party package or library that we find in the community. So where might we find these libraries or packages? One source of code, of open source code, is GitHub. And so we'll take a look at GitHub in a sec. Also, another official place where we can find and access third-party Python packages is the Python package index, or PyPI. So the way this works is that there are thousands, let's see, there's hundreds of thousands of Python libraries that people like you and I have written and shared with the rest of the community. So in many cases, if there's something that we need to do, there may be a Python package already created to help us do that thing. So for example, I showed you how to fetch data from Spotify last class. I did that using a third-party package called PyPI, which makes it so easy to interface with the Spotify service as one example of something that we would want to do in Python. So I guess if we search for like Spotify, let's say for your final project, you want to do something related to Spotify, there may be a number of packages to take a look at that might be able to help us out, including the Spotify package, which I used. So for any package, we get to see documentation as well as links to the homepage and also the actual source code. So whatever package we may be investigating or trying to use, we could always look into, well, how is it working under the hood by accessing the source code? And generally, most of the source code that we'll find will exist on GitHub. So if our goal was to work with Spotify and fetch Spotify data, I guess we can now just search for a package. We might have to explore a few, read about what packages other people recommend, or take my recommendations for certain packages. And then once we identify a package that we want to work with, we could just read the docs and they'll usually give an example. And so now our objective would be, oh, could we use this code and try it out? So that's kind of how this process works. But just by being curious and maybe even doing a Google search like Python Spotify package, that will now surface packages like this that could help us do things much more easily than we would be able to do them ourselves. So if we wanted to write code from scratch to fetch data from Spotify, it'd probably be like hundreds of lines, but someone has made this process easier for us, and maybe we could just use a few lines of code to do what we need to do, like fetch some tracks or something like that. Anyway, in order to use a package like this, we'll first have to install it. So the packages that come from the PyPI, this Python package index, may need to be first installed before we could use them. And in order to install any of these packages, we use Python's sidekick called Pip. So now I'd like to share with you how we would use Pip to A, figure out, well, what packages are currently installed so we could just start using them. And B, how could we install a package that we find on the package index so we could start using it. So now let's get into the package management demo. So in today's agenda, if you click through to this Python package management demo, we'll see what's going on here. There's more notes about the pip utility, which is Python's sidekick. If you were to try to set up a full local development setup, if you are, for example, interested in running the tic-tac-toe app that I demo in a few minutes, when you download Anaconda, it will provide you with Python and its sidekick pip. And so in Colab, we already have access to Python and pip. So let's see how we could use them. With pip, it's actually a terminal command. So I'll show you the terminal locally soon. And so with pip commands, we'll need to prefix them with an exclamation point. This means that this is not Python code. Rather, it's terminal code or bash code. More about that in a few minutes. So when I give you some examples of using some exclamation point in a code cell, we're actually not writing Python here. We'll start learning Python next week. But we could use a pip command to ask, for example, what packages are currently installed in the notebook's environment. So if we run this cell right here that says pip list, essentially we're saying, hey, package manager pip, could you please list all of the packages that are currently installed in Google Colab so we have access to use them. So I'm just running this cell now. And we'll see that there are dozens of pre-installed packages. I think Google has pre-installed the most popular packages already in the Colab notebook environment to make it easier for us to work with them. So after the spring break, we'll work more with pandas, for example, a package that will help us read data from a CSV file. Let's see, is pandas installed? Here we go, pandas. So there's like dozens of packages that are already installed and available for us to use in Google Colab. And so, for example, I did that pandas demo a few minutes ago in our accessing the environment notebook, where I actually imported a function from the pandas package. So we can only import a function from a package if it's already installed. So before we go using any package like pandas, for example, we'll first need to ask, well, is this package installed? And you can use a pip list command to ask what packages are installed. And if a package is installed, you could import functions from it and start to use those functions. That being said, there are hundreds of thousands of Python packages. We saw that when we visited the PyPI, the package index. So what if we find a package online that we want to use that isn't already installed in the Google Colab file system? We can always install any package from the package index on our own. And the way that we'll do that is with a pip install command. So after we scroll down a little bit in here, we'll see some examples of how we can install any package from the package index using some kind of command like pip, please install the following package, and then we just give it the package name. So in this notebook, I've given you two example packages that do some natural language processing stuff, which is one of my research interests. So the purpose of sharing this with you is not to start teaching you about natural language processing, but rather just know that natural language processing is an example of a capability that we could take advantage of in Python. And there are certain third-party packages that help us do certain natural language processing stuff. So if our goal was to make a project that tries to analyze the sentiment of certain text, or in this case, using the detoxify package, measure the toxicity of the language in given text, we could find some package on the package index like this detoxify package, for example, one that I've worked with and contributed to. And after consulting the documentation for how to use this package, we'll see some examples, some example code of how we'll need to use it. Like, I guess we could do some code like this, but only after we have installed this package using pip, if it's not already installed. So let's do this demo here. It's not the case that this detoxify package is already installed in Google Colab file system. We'll see if we did like a pip list command, and if we scroll through the results, I don't think we'll find the detoxify package here. That doesn't prevent us from using it though. Let's see, detoxify. Yeah, it's not in here. So if we wanted to use one of these packages, we could just import some functions from it. But if a package is not already included, we'll first have to install it. And so that's what we're doing here. Pip install, and then the name of the package. This might take a sec. It might produce some outputs. But when it's done, we'll be able to now run the following cell to actually use some kind of part from this package. And this code is just following the documentation of this package, kind of doing what it's telling us to do. So in this case, it's going to download a machine learning model, a pre-trained natural language processing model. Again, this course isn't about data science or natural language processing or machine learning, but after learning more about Python this semester, if you're more interested in data science and machine learning and artificial intelligence, you can explore some third-party packages like TensorFlow or PyTorch or scikit-learn, or, for example, Detoxify to do some machine learning stuff. So once all the material that is necessary is downloaded, we can now ask for some toxicity of certain texts. So this is just one example of using some parts of this provided by this package. So for example, if we try to detect the toxicity of all of these example tweets or text, we'll see the results here. And so this is just one example of using an example package. I chose Detoxify as the example to show with you. Each package does its own kind of thing. And if we want to leverage one of those packages, even one that we find online, whether it be on GitHub or on the package index, after a pip install, you should then be able to use that package in the way that its documentation describes. And so here we see a given tweet might have a higher toxicity level than others. And so you can, if you'd like, add your own text to this list and then rerun the cell to see the toxicity of that text. So, and we know that we could install packages, and each package might help us do different things. Was there questions about how we could list the currently installed packages or install our own? Yeah, go for it.
I have a question about installing packages. Is there really dangerous or sketchy in any way, or like as far as like getting virus?
This is a great question. When we install packages, they're all third-party, like open source. So it's possible, it may be possible that by installing that package, especially onto your local computer, that if you're not sure about what's included in that package, there's the potential to download some malicious code. This is an awesome question. Some security vulnerabilities, some hackers try to take advantage of these modules or library dependencies and try to inject some malicious code in there. However, what we should know is that we also have access to look at the underlying source code and inspect it. And so oftentimes, like what is the case for this Detoxify package, for example, we could consult the actual homepage or source code for this package. And so if we weren't sure if a given package is like malicious, we could always like look through the code that is behind that package on GitHub. That being said, there's like dozens of files, and how would you know if something is malicious or not? So That's why. We could use as a proxy for safety, as a proxy, popularity. Generally, if a package is more popular, if thousands of people are using it, including industry professionals, including security professionals who may have a better sense of whether something is malicious or not. If we see that hundreds or thousands of people are using a given package, that could be a proxy to help us be more comfortable with using it. And certainly all the packages that I'll share with you are not malicious, and most packages are not malicious, but I like the way you're thinking critically, and you've arrived at one potential hacker technique. So that's awesome. Follow-ups about that answer, or did that help? Cool. So in general, industry professionals are also using these packages and contributing to them. So even if there was a security vulnerability, someone would probably want to patch that up real quick. And so we could leverage the benefits of the community. All right. So I don't want to stress you out about any of the details of any of those demos that we just did. There was some code in there, and I'm sure you don't understand that code. We haven't talked about Python code yet until next week, but we're just talking about some concepts like package management in general.